Some of the most damaging relationships are the hardest ones to explain, and they don't have to look extreme in order to be deeply harmful. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast, where we make sense of what never quite made sense. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more, it's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin moving forward. You need a coach. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. So it's okay, Mom. Those 4 words came out of my young teenage son's mouth after his dad handed him a cherry slushie from Sonic. A peace offering, a reset button, a way to make the hurt disappear without ever actually naming it, acknowledging it, or owning it. And in that moment, something inside me screamed, "No, it isn't. This is not okay." That moment in my kitchen, nearly 10 years ago, is where my book started. Not the writing of it, that came later, but the seeing of it. The moment the fog cleared just long enough for me to recognize what I had been living inside of for years, and that it was not okay. Today, I am very excited to tell you something that I've been sitting on for a long time. This book that I've been working on for years is finally becoming a reality. The book is titled, "This Is Not Okay: Escaping the Invisible Grip of Covert Narcissistic Abuse," and I cannot wait to share it with you. Now, if you've been here a while, you know that this show started as a place to name what so many of us could not name for years or decades. The confusion, the self-doubt, the exhaustion of loving someone who always seemed out of reach, but whose kindness came at just the right moments and with conditions. You know the feeling of being told you're too sensitive so many times that you actually start to believe it yourself. You know what it's like to defend someone to your friends and family and then go home and wonder why you feel so small. This podcast has always been about giving that experience the language to talk about it. It's always been about building a community of those who get it, so you can talk with each other. The Facebook group that I have, I absolutely love. It has become a community where neighbor is helping neighbor. Well, this book is the next step of my journey. It's the fuller version of everything we've been circling here, but it's organized, expanded, and now put into your hands so that you can go back to it whenever you need it. Now, I'm not going to give you the whole book today. That would not be possible, and that's not what this episode is for. What I want to do is walk you through the stages of healing in the way that I lay it out in the book, but I want to tell you why I wrote it the way that I did and leave you with enough to know this. This book was written for you. Now, I didn't set out on this journey years ago or decades ago to write a book. I didn't start that way when I married and into this relationship, but I did set out to survive a relationship. I didn't set out to become an expert on covert narcissism. I set out to create a family and a home. I never saw this part of my journey coming. For years, I did what so many of you have done. I told myself, it's not that bad. Every marriage has its issues. I compared my relationship to the ones with police reports, broken bones, restraining orders. And I told myself, boy, I am lucky. I minimized everything. I excused everything away. I stretched myself thin, trying to keep the peace, convinced that if I just loved harder, communicated more clearly, stayed patient enough, that everything would eventually be okay, that I would finally be enough and our relationship would be good and we would be happy. But that point never came. You see, it was never enough, because that's not how this kind of abuse or this kind of relationship works. Covert narcissism doesn't usually announce itself loudly. It doesn't rage in public or leave marks that anyone else can see. It's often extremely quiet. It's a slow turn of a dial, not an on-off switch. I describe it in the book like trying to catch a ghost, and I've used that analogy here before too. You see it clearly 1 second, but then it blurs. You grasp it and you think, okay, I've got it now. Now I understand what covert narcissism is. But then it disappears and you feel completely clueless. You start to wonder if you imagined the whole thing until it appears again, because it always does, undeniably there. But then it's gone again, just as quick. I wrote this book because I lived in that confusion. I spent years trying to figure it out. I dug in desperately wanting to save my boys from the pain they were experiencing. And since then, I've spent years working with clients who are living the exact same nightmare. This book exists because the world needs something that doesn't just describe narcissism in the loud, obvious way that everyone already recognizes. Yes, that's important, and yes, that is needed. But now the world needs something for the ones of us who keep asking, is this really abuse if no one's yelling? Is it really abuse if no one's bleeding? The answer is yes. This book moves the same way healing does, not in a straight line, more in stages. It's a journey, just like the journey that you are on in these relationships, and it's the journey that I keep wishing you peace on. A journey of recognizing, understanding, seeing, untangling, and reclaiming. Today, I want to walk you through each stage of waking up to covert narcissism, because while we are each on our own journey, so much of it is the same for each one of us. Now, stage 1 is understanding covert narcissism. And this is where many of you might be right now. You might be hearing these words for the very first time. But for many of you, you might have already heard them many times over. But it's where you were the day you first found this podcast or the first book that you opened. Maybe you are further along by now, and that's awesome. Every time, though, that I revisit a book or a podcast or a blog post on understanding covert narcissism, I get a little more clarity, a little more understanding. Because of the confusing nature of covert narcissism, every time I read even the same book again, I get a little more depth out of it, a little more awareness. Your intuition is not wrong. Something is happening inside your relationship. Maybe you just don't have the words for it yet. Maybe you just don't have quite enough clarity and awareness yet. Well, this stage of understanding covert narcissism is when you start getting those words. It's when you start forming the language about what's going on inside your home. It names the fact that not every covert narcissist looks the same. Yes, there are a ton of similarities. Many of us feel like we've been living the same life or married to the same person, whether male or female. I've had so many clients say to me, I think you've got a camera on the inside of my house, like you're a fly on the wall watching my life because you're telling my stories on the podcast. And no, I don't have a camera inside anybody's home, but there are so many similarities in how this is playing out in so many relationships. But while that is true, there are also very many different colors of covert narcissism. Some withdraw into silence, some charm a room, some quote scripture on Sundays, and some yell and rage. There's no single mask, one size fits all. There's not even a single mask that fits every day of the week. One day, maybe yours withdraws into silence, but the very next day is quoting scripture, and then the day after that, yelling and raging. You see, they change like a chameleon, taking on whatever fits their purposes right then. Covert narcissism is on a spectrum. Like I said, not an on-off switch. It's more like a dimmer switch. They can turn it up, they can turn it down. You might even think of it as one of those switches that just changes the colors all the time. Sometimes green, sometimes blue, red, purple, yellow. The packaging changes, but the harm does not. Stage 2 of the healing journey is identifying the strategies. And this is where you get specific, and I mean very specific. This stage is about breaking down exactly how that grip, that invisible grip, works. Control through avoidance, through reality distortion, through emotional manipulation, and yes, even control in the bedroom and that sense of obligation. The point here is that it's control. It's control and manipulation through all these different ways that it shows up, all the different tactics that they use. In this stage, you start breaking down gaslighting, blame shifting, triangulation, love bombing, circular conversations, devaluing, this entire toolkit that they seem to have. And you lay it out in front of you so that you can finally point to the patterns instead of wondering if you're imagining it. Now, there's a moment in this stage of healing where I started talking about something I call the mental list. That list that I'd made up that was like the things I will never say again. It's a list in my head of the things I would never do again or the topics I would never bring up. I remember saying to myself, oh, I'll never say that again, or I'll never talk about this again. All the topics, the words, even the times of day that you learn to avoid because you know how it'll go. You know how it will land. In the beginning, this list starts small. A subject here, a tone there, so it seems like no big deal. And then one day you look up and you realize how much of yourself you have edited out. How much of you has disappeared. Not just your words, but your humor, your smile, your honesty, your spontaneity, your personality. I wrote in the book, every expression becomes a calculation. Will this upset them? Will they twist it? Will I pay for this later? It is in this stage of healing that we begin to realize how much of ourselves we have given up, that we have sacrificed. Now, stage 3 is seeing the invisible framework. This stage is about the environment, and I don't mean nature and trees and such. I mean the emotional and mental environment that you are living in. The one inside of you that you are living inside of, your own body, the one inside your children, and the one inside the family and friends around you. These people who only ever see the version of them that shows up in public. You see, covert narcissism, it doesn't stay contained inside an argument. It doesn't stay hidden only behind closed doors. Even though most of it only happens behind closed doors, it actually walks with you everywhere you go. It seeps into every aspect of your life. It settles into the way you think, the way you talk to yourself, the way you interact with your world. It settles into your kids even before they have the language for what they're absorbing. And it shapes how the outside world sees you, often as the problem because they've only ever met the charming version of them. This is the stage where you start seeing the fog that is lifting from your eyes. Once it starts to lift, then you can start to see it. FOG stands for fear, obligation, and guilt, and that acronym names exactly what keeps so many of us stuck. This stage of your healing is where many people often start to see what happens to children who are raised inside this dynamic. How their nervous system learns to read a room before they learn to read a book. And I don't take that lightly. This leaves deep, deep scars in our kids. It leaves deep wounds inside of us watching this happen. If you are a parent in this situation dealing with covert narcissistic abuse within the home, then this stage of your healing may be the hardest, and it may be the most important one for you to move through. Stage 4 of the healing journey is understanding the trap. Now we stop looking at the narcissist in our life, and we start looking at ourselves. Not to blame ourselves, absolutely not. And we need to make sure we're clear about that because it becomes very easy to blame ourselves. But no, this is to explain things. This is when we start asking, why didn't I see it sooner? Why did I stay all this time? What is it in me that caused me to not see this as abuse? Understanding what your brain was doing to help you survive is crucial on this journey. This is where we really begin to understand cognitive dissonance. Maybe you've heard the word before, but let's explain it in a simple but very real way. It is a survival tactic of your brain. There's nothing wrong with your mind that it turned to cognitive dissonance. It's a survival tactic. When your mind cannot reconcile what's happening with what it believes, it changes what it believes. Listen to that again. When your mind cannot reconcile what's happening around it with what it believes, then the easiest path for peace within you is to change what it believes. It changes its own interpretation of reality to keep your sense of self intact, to keep your mind and your body in as much peace as it can muster, even though this isn't sustainable. But understanding this is a powerful part of the healing journey. This is the stage as well where many, many people start asking, am I the narcissist here? Because they're seeing this thing called reactive abuse. This is the moment that you finally snapped, raised your voice, slammed a door, said the sharp, harsh thing that you now regret saying. And what did they do, the covert narcissist? They stood back, calm as ever, and said, see, this is why we can't talk. You're the abusive one. But you really need to understand that reactive abuse does not mean you are unstable, abusive, or incapable of emotional regulation. It doesn't make you controlling and narcissistic. It means that you've been living in an environment that repeatedly overwhelms your nervous system while offering no repair, no accountability, and no genuine connection. If you've spent years thinking that you were the problem just because you were the one who eventually broke, does not make you the problem. A deeper understanding of covert narcissism will help you to see where the story actually begins. Stage 5 of your healing is reclaiming yourself. This is the stage that I hold on to with the most hope because awareness is not the destination. Awareness says this is not okay. But healing says, now I'm going to do something about it. This is the untangling part. Like you're in this giant web. The covert narcissistic abuse creates this web around you, and you now untangle emotionally, mentally, and physically. Reclaiming yourself must happen whether you leave or whether you stay in this relationship. If staying is your reality right now, that's okay. Both paths are honored here. It's not the point. There's no ultimatum on this journey. Just forward. Forward at your own pace. This is a path towards autonomy. Now, threaded through every stage of my book and hopefully through every stage of your healing journey are grounding and nervous system practices. I don't want you to just understand your story intellectually. No, it's time for your body to catch up too. Breaking cognitive dissonance is about putting your mind and body back on the same page. Now, I want to talk about something that matters more to me than the book itself, and that is this community. This was never supposed to be about my story. From the very beginning, before there ever was a podcast or a manuscript, the mission was always bigger than me. I started sharing my stories so that other people could hear and connect with it and know they're not alone. As soon as I realized that I was not the only one living this nightmare, I desperately wanted to help the others who were out there too. I wanted to hear their story, connect through their struggle, cry and laugh together. My mission was about neighbor helping neighbor. It was about the idea that none of us are supposed to do this alone, and that the moment one of us stands up and says, this is not okay, it becomes easier for the next person to stand up too, and then the next, and the next. That's how a whole room ends up standing together. That's how community works. This is the part I want you to hear today. This book has my name on the cover, sure, but it was never mine alone. It comes out of thousands of conversations with people just like you, people who trusted me with their stories so that other people could finally see their own story reflected back at them. Every chapter carries pieces of this community inside of it. This is not my voice anymore. It's ours. You've probably already felt that community if you've spent time with CNG. Our Facebook group exists because people needed a place to say the quiet part out loud and be met with me too instead of your overreacting. If you would like to join that group, go to Facebook and search Covert Narcissism Group. Let me know if you have any trouble getting in. Group coaching exists because healing goes deeper and feels safer when you're not doing it in isolation, staring at your own thoughts on a loop. In the CNG retreats, if you've never been to one, I don't know how to fully explain what happens in that space. People walk in as strangers, carrying stories that they've never said out loud, and they walk out having built real, deep friendships with people who get it. I just returned home from this year's retreat in Colorado. It was one of the best we've ever had, and I mean that. Something happens when survivors sit across from each other face to face and realize they're not the only one, that they're not broken, they're not too much, they're not imagining this. Watching that unfold in person reminds me over and over again why this work has never been about me. It's about all of us standing in a circle together. So when the book comes out this fall, I want you to think of it less like a memoir and more like an invitation into this community. It's a way to bring more people into this circle, more neighbors, more voices, more people who no longer have to sit alone in their kitchen wondering if what they're feeling is real, or crying at 2 a.m. feeling totally invisible. This book opens the door, and the community is what's waiting on the other side of it. Now, if you take one thing from today, let it be this. Whatever has been confusing you in your relationship, whatever you have minimized because it wasn't loud enough to count, it counts. And when it comes to covert narcissism, this is not okay. As always, I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more. It's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin to move forward. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. Your story matters, and you deserve to be heard without judgment. Check out my coaching services at my website, again, covertnarcissism.com. And don't forget to subscribe, to thumbs up, to follow, to like this podcast so that you can get more empowering episodes like this one, and to help us continue spreading the word so that our community can continue to grow. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those she has talked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support any allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of this material and information provided.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.